In 2014, he co-founded Dronamics with his brother, an aerospace engineer with a mission to leverage advances in autonomy, aerodynamics, and production in order to democratize air freight and accelerate e-commerce in emerging markets. Their pioneering work has won them numerous international awards. In 2018, Dronamics became IATA's first strategic partner for drones worldwide. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Svilen Rangelov.
Wow, lots of fire. Hello, everyone. My name is Svilen Rangelov, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about aviation in Bulgaria. First, I'm going to show you a few photos, which are actually from Bulgarian aircraft manufacturing from almost 100 years ago. And it turns out that Bulgaria had quite a big history in aviation for a while. Now, can anyone guess what happened in 1910 with Tsar Ferdinand in aviation? Well, Tsar Ferdinand was actually the first head of state to take a commercial flight, right? In 1912, which was not even 10 years after the Wright brothers made their first flight, in 1912, Bulgaria was the first country to create an airport. It was a military airport, and it was in Svilengrad. People from all around the world came, like they're coming now for Webit. They came to see how you could use aviation in a useful way. In that case, Bulgaria was preparing for the First Balkan War, so this was why this was important for us. It goes to show that even a small country can utilize innovation. And at the time, you can imagine there was no internet. Like, you couldn't see the Wright brothers video online on Snapchat and all that. So for that information to propagate, it's quite fascinating. And not only to propagate, but also to inspire quite a few people to join in a common cause. Lieutenant Simeon Petrov was made another world's first. And around that time, all the aircraft was typically with one engine. And when that engine failed, you crash and you don't survive. Simeon Petrov was the first person to successfully land an aircraft after an engine failure mid-air. And so he, the things that he did later informed people on aviation safety and how to pilot in a more safe way. Radu Milkov and Prodan Tarakchiev did something a little controversial. You may have heard of that. In 1912, again, they were the first people in the world who used an aircraft for military purposes, where they dropped bombs over a city. Not really a great thing for peace, but it was very important to be done. Raina Kasabova, even more importantly, Raina Kasabova was the first female pilot in the world, the first female military pilot in the whole world. So there's a lot of talk about gender issues and so on in tech in our industry, but you could see that people were very proactive and very advanced even 100 years ago. Arsen Yordanov, who at the age of 15, so he was way younger than most of you here, created the first Bulgarian airplane. All right, it wasn't the best airplane in the world, but it was an airplane created by a 15-year-old. How many 15-year-olds do you know that can make an airplane, right? So this was all pretty impressive, and it goes to show that Bulgaria sort of was a leading force in aviation, and it attracted a lot of investment, it attracted a lot of industry. In the several decades that followed after the First World War, Bulgaria was the site of 3 aircraft factories, which produced more than 1,000 airplanes and more than 40 prototypes of new designs. New types of airplanes were developed here, as were built airplanes by other countries in Bulgaria. So this was really a great industry, and you had the aircraft factory in Bujurište, just outside of Sofia, which was the biggest one. You had the factory in Lovech, You can see up there the sign says "Pušenje to je zabranjeno," no smoking. And you had Caproni Bugarski, which was in Kazanlak. It was a joint venture by an Italian company and so on. So 1,000 aircraft, 40 new models, right? And then we all know what happened. For 70 years, we were sort of invited not to do aircraft manufacturing and to buy other aircraft. And for good or bad, this was the case, right? In 2014, my brother, who's an aerospace engineer, and we saw the Amazon drones, and we thought, why don't we create a new aircraft? Small drones are fine, they're fun, they can be very useful, but what if you were to take an existing aircraft and make it unmanned? Or what if, even better, what if you create a completely new type of aircraft that is unmanned solely for the purpose of transportation? Now, it's funny that in Bulgarian, the word for aircraft, samolet, sort of means autonomously flying, right? It flies itself. So for 100 years, people were actually quite advanced. Now, at Dronamics, our mission is to democratize aviation, to bring that innovation that we're developing in a country that 70 years had no commercial aviation, commercial aircraft manufacturing, to develop it here, to show that it can be done, and then build it similarly in other countries around the world. Now, we have a team of around 20 people. Almost all of them are engineers. Not everyone is Bulgarian. We have a couple of teammates from France. I think one of them is here in the audience. We're joined by some really great advisors, and we are IATA's first and only strategic partner for drones in the whole world. And thank you. The big thing is on demand. We are all here for Webit, technology. Technology has changed our life. We want everything to be on demand, online. With the reach of our thumbs, we can order food, we can order taxis, we can order plane tickets, we can order a lot of things. And shopping, e-commerce, in the future will just be called commerce, because that's where things are headed. But unfortunately, that's where the digital world meets the real world. Infrastructure is not quite there yet. And in most countries, governments will always prioritize building the highways between the big cities. But what about the tier 2? What about the tier 3 cities? What about the small villages, the remote areas? The world is quite big. I mean, the distance between Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa is actually the same as the distance between London and Vienna. Europe is tiny compared to the whole other world out there. So there's a lot of mileage of roads that needs to be built that may not catch up. And that's why the air becomes a proper option. But air is very expensive, so we're trying to make it cheap. And this is why we've named our aircraft the Black Swan, because it's very challenging to create new technology to be very cheap. But it's also, you can consider it a flying delivery van. It can transport as much as you can fit in a small cargo van, sort of what we call in Bulgaria banicharka. And yeah, it can fly up to 2,500 kilometers, which I'll show you in a minute what that means. But this is a little video of some of the tests that we've been doing here in Bulgaria for more than a year now. I wish I could bring you the aircraft, but it wouldn't be able to fly here because the space is too small. Now, this unit has 4-meter wingspan, and it's 1/4 of the big scale. So the full-scale prototype will be the size of a 2-seater Cessna. 16 meters wingspan, 8 meters fuselage, and so on. It can fly autonomously, or it can be remotely piloted. We can use satellite navigation to achieve those long ranges, and it uses gasoline, which is a little controversial, but this is why we focus to make it the most fuel-efficient aircraft possible. It uses the same mileage that you would get in a banicharka, except we can fly at 200 kilometers per hour in a straight line. So we are still more fuel-efficient than existing aircraft and existing cars. Now, in terms of the aircraft, we can't just restrict it to the aircraft. We need to think about the whole ecosystem. Who's going to control them? From where? What kind of other equipment we need? And we're also working on this idea we call drone ports until we figure out a better name. But it's essentially how do we make sure that that aircraft can land and take off from your farm, from the parking lot of a fulfillment center, or from a normal airport. How does it mix into traffic and so on? In the world, there's more than 55,000 airfields, and we use less than 2,000 for commercial aviation. So there's a lot of space out there that aviation can reach. In terms of Europe, I told you our range is 2,500 kilometers. If we were to center it in Vienna, we can reach all of Europe with that range. What's best is that because of the fuel efficiency of our aircraft, we can achieve that amazing cost of same-day delivery for €5 or less per package. Think about it. You can order a cell phone or a dress, and you can get it that very same day, and you only pay €5 or less. We'll be testing with EasyJet. Thank you. We'll be testing with EasyJet in the UK next year, in Japan with a top 3 airline, in China with a top 3 courier, and we're very excited to bring other countries on board. So if, of course, as you know, 20 people are not enough for this, and we'll need all the help we can get. So everyone is welcome to join. Thank you.